to book Billy Alsbrooks to speak at your next event. Call 407-310-3275. Warning! Videos by Billy Alsbrooks do cause side effects. And those side effects are champions being born, dreams being realized, the weak becoming strong, weight loss, victory over unbelievable odds, incredible comeback stories, the sick being healed, marriages being restored, victory over all forms of addiction, job promotions, average people becoming millionaires, warriors becoming blessed and unstoppable. These videos will motivate and inspire you to take action. Warning, your faith is now being increased to the level it takes to move mountains. Arise, champion! I'm Billy Alsbrooks and I approve this message. At 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, December 18th, 2007, I get a phone call, and it was my uncle. I knew it was kind of strange because I usually didn't talk to my uncle that often, and especially not at 12:30 a.m. But I picked up the phone, and my uncle said, "Billy, your daddy has had a stroke. He's been rushed to the hospital, and it's not good. So you need to come up here to Alabama and get up here as fast as you can." So I hung up the phone, my whole body shaking because this just hit me like a brick out of the blue. And I began to pack. And me and my wife and my little dog, Half Pint, we were in the car within 15 minutes, headed up the road on that 12-hour drive, not knowing what the outcome was gonna be. And we finally get up there that afternoon and we go straight to the hospital, and my dad is in the ICU. He can't move his right arm, can't move his right leg. When he tries to speak, it's incoherent, words all over the place that make absolutely no sense. And for the first time, I'm scared. I'm still shaking from that phone call that I got earlier. And I'm trying not to break down. I'm just in a daze. I'm in total shock because this was unexpected. My dad didn't have any health problems. He was 63, but he looked 43. And my grandparents were in the 80s and still alive and still healthy. So for this to happen to my dad, it just happened out of the blue, and I just wasn't ready for it. I thought I had 25 more years before I would have to deal with anything like this. And I guess it's just something that you just put in the back of your mind because you don't want to deal with it. And the ironic thing was, 2 days before this happened, I was at the bookstore looking for some books that would teach me how to make my mind a weapon, how to gain control of my thoughts. And here I was 2 days later, on the verge of losing my mind, the total opposite of what I had set out for. I tried to hold the tears back, at least while everybody else was around. I don't know if you can relate, but have you ever cried with one side of your face and not the other so that people couldn't see? Well, that's what I was doing. I tried to put on my game face, like I had it all under control. My mother and daddy raised me in positive thinking. So I was like, okay, I was trained for this moment. I'm not gonna let any negativity in. I'm not gonna believe in any other outcome but my dad getting up out of this hospital, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get him out. But that was running contrary to everything I was seeing, everything I was feeling, and everything those doctors were telling me. But it was just a roller coaster ride of emotions. I mean, 1 minute I'm strong in faith, and the next minute I'm face down on the hospital floor crying. But my mom and daddy raised me to believe in God. And I knew he existed up there. But at this point in time, I hadn't been to church in probably 20 years. But the foundation had been laid by my parents. And in this moment, my darkest hour, God introduced himself. For the next 9 days, my father was plugged up to these machines and his blood pressure was sky high. The doctors were worried he was gonna have another stroke. So I sat there next to him, looking at those machines for 20 hours a day. I prayed. I did everything. I spoke over him, nothing but life. I told him he was gonna get better. He didn't understand what had happened to him, but I just kept telling him, I'm gonna get you out of here. And each day, he got a little better, and a little better, and a little better. And 9 days later, they transferred him to a nursing home, a rehabilitation place where he could get physical therapy and start working on regaining control of his arm and leg again. I never will forget it. It's so vivid in my mind. Sunday, 12 days after he had had his stroke, the sun was out, so bright, the brightest I've ever seen it in my life. And as I'm driving over there to the nursing home, there's not a cloud in the sky. And I get to the room that day, and the doctor suggests that we should get him out of the bed, get him in a wheelchair, and roll him outside so he could see a little bit of that sunlight. So the nurse and I began to lift my dad up out of the bed and into the wheelchair. But what no one knew was that because my dad had lost control of his leg and hadn't moved it in 12 days, there had been a blood clot that formed. And by us lifting him up and putting him in that wheelchair, that blood clot became dislodged and shot straight to his lungs. I noticed my dad started acting different, and I brought it up to the nurse, and at first she dismissed it and just said, oh, he's probably just weak from being in the bed this long. But then my dad started taking these short breaths, and the breathing was different. And she noticed it, so she immediately started checking his blood pressure, and she could tell something was off, so she hit the panic button, and all the doctors started running into the room. And at first, they didn't seem to think it was that serious, but I know something's off, and I'm beginning to panic and feel like this thing is slipping away from me. My dad's starting to take these short breaths now. It's getting worse, and it just seems like he's spiraling down and down and down. And there's nothing I could do. I felt helpless because I knew this whole thing was out of my control. And it seemed like it took forever for the ambulance to get there. I heard the sirens from miles and miles away. Darkness began to cover the room. The emotional intensity began to rise. The fear, the worry, the panic. My grandmother's crying. My wife is running around crazy. My dad is barely breathing. Doctors and nurses are working on him. I'm holding his hand and I'm saying, Daddy, hold on. Breathe, Daddy, breathe. I love you, Daddy. Hold on. Please, hold on. Just breathe. Just breathe. It's gonna be okay. Hold on, Daddy. I love you. But I knew this was different. This was the first time I had seen fear in his eyes in my whole life. And somehow, he was able to get out the words, I love you, son. I said, I love you too, Daddy. Hold on. Breathe, Daddy. Breathe. The paramedics get there, and they roll him out to the ambulance, and I get in there with him. And it's getting worse, it's progressing, and I just don't know how to handle it. I mean, how do you handle this? You can't do anything. I can't get in there. I can't fix it. All the times he had helped me, saved me, and in this moment of his need, I could do nothing. We get to the emergency room. They roll my daddy into a room. The paramedics hook him up, but there's no doctors in the room when we get there. So the paramedic stays with him. And my daddy's beginning to crash and get worse and worse and worse. until the doctors come in and they rush me out of the room. And I take one last glance at the eyes. And I know the one thing a son never wants to know about his father. I know I haven't accepted it, but I know. I go into the bathroom there in the hospital. I go into the stall. I lock the door behind me. And I get on my knees right there on the floor. And I say, God, I know you can heal him, but your will, not mine. I had to say the prayer I didn't ever want to say. A few minutes later, the nurses ushered me and my family into this little side room, and we all sat there quiet, in tears, shaking, and waiting for news on my daddy. I could hear down the hall the sound of a flatline. And we all know what that flatline means, but I could just hear it over and over, and it just kept ringing, and it didn't stop, they didn't cut it off. It just kept ringing. It seemed like for minutes after minute after minute, it just kept ringing. But I already knew what I didn't want to know. Finally, one of the doctors comes in the room, and it's like when there's bad news, they have to deliver it to you in stages. They don't want to give it all to you at one time because they know you can't handle it. So he comes in and he says, it's not looking good. Your dad's in bad shape. We might want to start thinking about quality of life and all this gibberish. And then he turns and goes back in my dad's room. And we're just sitting there all silent in his room, just praying, hoping, wishing, all the stuff that you do. But I already knew what I didn't want to know. The doctor eventually came back in and said, your dad is gone. And when I heard that, for 1 second, I remembered the prayer in the stall that I had prayed. I had this unbelievable peace come over me that could only have been from heaven. For 1 second, it just surrounded me and I felt totally at peace for 1 second. And then the whole world came crashing down on me. I fell to the ground and I had my first full-blown panic attack right there in that side room. I didn't even know what it was. I just thought I was about to die too, just like my daddy. I said, here's my grandmother worrying over here crying, and I'm about to die too. I never had any experience with panic attacks. I didn't know what this was. I'm exhausted, wore down from 12 days of worry and trying to carry something I was never meant to carry. I'm in denial. This can't be happening to me. I know this is not real. This is a dream. Let me wake up. I know this is not right. This is not how I had it planned. 15 minutes ago, everything was okay. No. Not my daddy. No. Billy Alsbrooks Sr., born July 20th, 1944, died Sunday, December 30th, 2007. You don't know how hard it is for me to tell you that story right there. But I wanted to open up to you, keep it real, and give you some background info as to how I got to doing what I'm doing now, and why I do what I do now with the intensity I do it with. 2 days after my dad died, that's when my ministry started. The hospital gave me the clothes my dad was wearing when he had his stroke. And searching for all kind of answers in that moment, like why this whole thing happened. I went through his pockets and found this note. And it was from an inmate. You see, my dad was an alcoholic. And he drank for about 30-something years of his life. But the last 15 years of his life, he had gotten sober. And he was going around to the jails, chairing the AA meetings for the inmates. He was sponsoring and helping these guys overcome their addictions, just like he had. But one of the inmates had put a note in his pocket. It said, at the next meeting, could you please bring in a Thompson Chain reference Bible? I've just received Christ and I want to go deeper in my studies. And if there's any way you can bring this book in, I'd really appreciate it. Now, I'd never even heard of a Thompson Chain reference Bible. I didn't know what that was, but I had some kind of urge on the inside of me to do that thing that my dad couldn't do. So I went to the Christian bookstore. I asked them for the book. They knew of it. I bought it, and I took it over to the jail, and I gave it to the sheriff, and I said, my dad used to come here, and they knew him. And I said, hey, this was something my dad wasn't able to do, was bring this guy this reference Bible. Could you please deliver it to him? And the sheriff said it was against policy, but he knew my dad, and he knew what had happened, so he said he would make an exception in this case. Now, I never met the guy that I gave it to. I don't know what happened. I don't even know if he even got it. But looking back, I feel like that was a test that God was saying, will you deliver my word to my people? The day after my dad died, we went over to the funeral home to make the arrangements. And the funeral director asked me, what do you want to put on your dad's headstone? What's the wording? He asked, what do you want to put in the obituary that's going to go in the paper? I didn't have any clue of what kind of funeral my dad wanted. We never talked about this kind of stuff. But inside making these arrangements was the last gift and the most precious one that my dad ever gave me. You see, I came to realize in that moment that I too was gonna die. And then somebody would be asking what to put on my headstone, what to put in my obituary. I mean, I had heard it all before, all the quotes. Life is short, life is precious. Live life to the fullest. Live every day like it's your last, cause one day it will be. But up until then, all that stuff was just quotes in a book. I had no understanding, no revelation, no comprehension of what they were saying until that moment at that funeral home. Then I understood life is precious. At the wake, people got up and talked about how my dad had impacted their life. Story after story after story of how my dad changed their life. One said he helped them get off drugs. Another one said he helped him overcome alcohol. Another one said he came and bailed him out of jail when he got picked up for a DUI. Another one said he came and got me on the side of the road at 2:30 a.m. in the morning when no one else would come. Another one said he taught all my sons how to play the guitar. And now they're all writing songs and playing at church. But the one thing nobody spoke about at the funeral was money. See, I'd been in the music business for the last 17 years, and all I had been chasing was money, fame, and the lust of the flesh. And not one of them mentioned any of the things that I've been chasing. And that shook me to the core. See, I had all my priorities wrong. Now, I'm not saying money's not important, that it doesn't play a role, but it just gotta be in the right order. Right there on that gravesite, I realized life was about legacy. As they lowered my dad down in that red clay mud, in that Alabama soil, I had the biggest revelation of my life. I asked myself, what do I want to be known for? What do I want them saying at my wake? What do I want them thinking when they lower me in this ground? See, I was embarrassed, because if I had died right then and they'd been putting together my obituary, I'd have been so ashamed of what they put in there. Sometimes we need an event like what I went through in order to see ourselves for what we really are. My dad wasn't vocal, but I knew he loved me. And my whole music career, I've been using a stage name. But I buried it that day with my daddy, and I decided to build my legacy around the name that he gave me. And the way he died unexpectedly taught me that tomorrow isn't promised. So you don't know how long you're gonna be here on this earth. You better start living now, Billy. It was 20 degrees, January 2nd, and I'm sitting there by that grave in the cold wind with the tears just coming down over and over and over. Wipe them away, and they just kept coming. And this voice on the inside of me kept saying, who are you gonna be, Billy? Who are you gonna be, Billy? Who you gonna decide to be, Billy? What do you wanna leave this world, Billy? What's gonna be your legacy, Billy? When you start taking those last short breaths like your daddy did, are you gonna be content with the way you lived? Are you gonna be proud and satisfied with what you left this world? Who do you wanna be, Billy? Who do you wanna be? I don't remember much about 2008. It was just one dark cloud. I had sunk into depression. I was blaming myself for my daddy dying. If I had to got him out of that bed in the nursing home and try to put him in that wheelchair, maybe he'd still be living today. The doctors tried to comfort me and tell me that it wasn't my fault, that that blood clot could have dislodged at any time, but I still blame myself. Only if I hadn't moved. Why did I have to move him? I kept cycling those last 10 minutes of my dad's life over and over and over in my mind. Who do you want to be, Billy? Why did my daddy have to die? You better get to living, Billy. Why did I have to move him? Stop running. Who do you want to be, Billy? The week I got back to Florida, I started going back to church. I'd come in and I'd sit on the back row with my back up against the wall so nobody could see me crying. Mom and Daddy didn't raise no quitter, but Lord, I'm shattered into a million pieces, and it's hard for me to fake it. That summer in 2008, I found out my grandfather had stomach cancer, and it was terminal. Up to this point, I hadn't talked to any counselors or therapists or any of that stuff about what was going on the inside of me, the guilt and the pain and all that stuff that I was cycling about my dad every single second of the day. And it was just stacking and stacking on the inside. And now I get this news about my granddaddy, who I'm also close with. I just couldn't deal with it. It was mental and emotional overload. I felt like I was submerged in darkness, suffocating on anticipation. I can't take another phone call. My mother would call me each day and update me on my grandfather. And as he progressively got worse, each day I got more nervous. Fear started coming over me. Anxiety started building up. I got to where I wouldn't even answer the phone because I was worried about what she was gonna say. See, in this uncontrollable situation, not answering my phone gave me a little sense of control. Because if I didn't answer the phone, I didn't have to hear the news. I could check the voicemail. And I could distance myself from reality and pretend it didn't happen. And I could put reality on hold. Reality waits for no one. When I checked the voicemail and heard the news, I got in my car to drive back home. I had about a 45-minute drive, and it was on this drive that I had my second panic attack. And this time I was alone in the car, by myself, 30 minutes away from home. The side effects from the trauma that I went through with my dad is now coming full bloom. And I'm thinking in this car that I'm about to die. Every second feels like an hour. I didn't know what to do, whether to pull over on the side of the road, drive straight to the hospital, to drive home to get my wife and then go to the hospital. All these things just kept cycling over and over in my mind. I'm gonna have a heart attack. I can't breathe. Just like my daddy, I couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. Just like you, daddy, I can't breathe. I'm gonna die just like you. You had a stroke in the car. I'm gonna stroke right down this car. What's wrong with me? I don't wanna die alone. Please, Lord, help me. If you love me, Lord, please. Who do you want to be, Billy? My mother had asked me to be one of the pallbearers for my grandfather. I hadn't told her about the panic attack, because at that time, I didn't even know it was a panic attack. I thought I was just having health problems. I'm terrified on the inside, thinking that I'm gonna die. And it could happen at any second. My dad taught me that. It comes in the unexpected. So I've got to stay on guard. My mind has got to protect me now. Those last 10 minutes of my dad's life have now become a ghost that haunt me, and everybody knows you can't run from a ghost. But I don't want to burden or add stress to my mother, because she's trying to deal with the loss of my grandfather. And yes, I love my granddaddy. He was special to me, but I don't want to be anywhere near that funeral home. I'm doing everything I can to hide it and not be a burden to my mother. But I had a panic attack in the parking lot. I had a panic attack in the lobby. I had a panic attack in the bathroom. And I had a panic attack while I'm carrying the casket. It got so bad I almost had to let it go. I can't let my granddaddy's casket go. Good thing about funerals is everybody else is crying too. So I just sat in the back. Now I was slave to anxiety. That night I went to the emergency room. As I was waiting on the doctors to see me, I'm sitting in the chair, reliving those final 10 minutes of my dad's life. And I'm literally going crazy in my mind, because you can't run from yourself. The unresolved emotions overcoming me. And this thing, whatever it is, this fear and all this stuff is in my mind, and I can't see any way out. It's just dark. I'm in a room, emergency room full of people, but I'm all alone because nobody can get in my mind and help me fight this battle. It's just me and the ghost. And that ghost is winning. And this is so foreign to me because I've never had any health issues. I've always been healthy. Facts mean nothing to my mind because right now, my mind is trying to protect me. It's what they call fight or flight. My subconscious mind is now taking over. It's got the wheel, and it's controlling what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and I can't do anything about it. I'm the type of person that has to have control of the situation, and right now I'm completely out of control. Who do you want to be, Billy? Stop asking me that. Can't you see what I'm going through? I can barely breathe. How do I fight a ghost? I can't go back and change it. Who do you want to be, Billy? Finally, this doctor comes and sees me. He's got this real calm and presence about himself, and he checked all my vitals and looked me over, and he finally said, "Son, there's nothing physically wrong with you. What you're experiencing is anxiety and panic attacks. I'm gonna write you a prescription, and when you get back to Florida, you go see a therapist." Then 7, then 10 panic attacks per day. The old life I knew was nothing more than a blur now. My new life, darkness. My new life, guilt. My new life, intense fear, anxiety, and anticipation. My mind, I now no longer have control of. It's been hijacked by the past, overthrown with guilt, mentally incarcerated, constantly on guard, expecting the next emotional terrorist attack. There's no peace, there's no joy, there's no happiness. Every day is just Groundhog Day, over and over and over. Emotionally and physically, I was broken. Now, some of you have never experienced a panic attack, so I want to explain to you how it feels. I want you to think back in your life to the time, that moment that you were the most scared, most terrified, most in fear for your own survival. I mean, the point where you can see your whole life flash in front of you. Now I want you to think of that time, and then I want you to stretch it. Imagine stretching that moment over 60 seconds, over 60 minutes, over 24 hours, over 7 days, over 31 days, over 365 days a year, and it never ceasing. Just constant. Just imagine staying in that moment and it never ceasing. And no matter what you do, no matter what you try, it just persists. You cry and it doesn't do anything. You get angry and it doesn't do anything. It's just you and this invisible ghost that you can't see. It's all being triggered from the subconscious mind, and you have no control over it. It could rear its ugly head at any given time and bring you to your knees. When it's in your mind like this, it's not tangible, it's not physical, so you can't quite see what needs to be fixed. You can't put your hands around it. When these attacks start happening, you start getting dizzy. You feel like you can't breathe, that the world is just closing in around you and the walls are just gonna crush you. You have absolutely no control over these events. You just gotta sit there in the center of this thing and wait it out. The fear starts feeding itself until it becomes so traumatizing to the mind that the mind becomes irrational and hypersensitive to any physical ailment. These attacks became so intense that I would retreat to my bedroom for 2 weeks at a time without coming out. The slightest twitch in my body would send me in a rush to the emergency room. I went to the hospital 12 times in 9 months, thinking I was having a heart attack, thinking I was having a stroke, thinking I had some kind of terminal cancer. Every time these doctors would run their tests on me, they would come back and say, "There's nothing physically wrong with you." But my subconscious mind just refused to accept this truth. The fear and anticipation of having another panic attack always triggered another panic attack. The rising tension on the inside, the adrenaline overload, and the escalating cycle of anticipation held me captive, alone in that bedroom, day after day after day. I stayed in my bedroom because it was the only thing that I could control. If I was gonna have a panic attack, I wanted to have it there, my safe zone. Even though that bedroom wasn't safe because the panic attacks would still occur, it was a false sense of comfort because you can't run from yourself. So I retreated to this restricted, miserable state of existence. Everybody I knew thought I went crazy and I lost my mind. And the truth is I had. I read this article about this program called Grief Share, where people would get together a couple times a week who had lost loved ones so they could share and vocalize their pain. So I went to a couple of meetings and it actually made it worse. See, I had PTSD from the trauma that I went through with my father. So every time these members would start sharing about their loved one in their last minutes or the last time they saw them or the condition that they had, it would trigger another panic attack inside me and I'd have to leave the group. I'd have to leave the meeting. I was actually a year and a half late to that group. See, I should have done that right away after my father had died and dealt with those emotions then, but I didn't know about that. I let a year and a half go by and let this stuff stack up in me until it just exploded. The type of mental imbalances that I had needed to be approached strategically in order to bring my mind back into balance. So I went to see 5 or 6 different therapists, 3 or 4 different pastors, psychologists. I went to see anybody who would see me, but nothing seemed to work. They either wanted to just give me medication, or I didn't connect with them personally, or I felt that they just didn't care about me at all and it was just all about money. No matter who I saw, my condition stayed the same. Sometimes it even got worse. So I retreated to the room for another 2 weeks. Finally, my wife called another therapist, and I could hear her in the living room on the phone with him explaining my situation. And she told him, I don't think Billy can make it to your office. And the therapist said, well, I'll come to you. And I could hear him say that from the other room because she had him on speakerphone. And it was just something about the way he said, I'll come to him, that just gave me this small sense of hope. Now, he had just graduated and barely been doing therapy for 6 months. But I felt the sincerity of him, like he really cared about me. And I was a motivated patient. See, when you take a person who really wants to change, and you take a therapist who is passionate about his clients, who really cares, I knew those were 2 winning ingredients. Now, I told him on the first session, I said, now you don't have the experience of the guys that I've seen. You don't have a Harvard degree, and you've only been in business 6 months, but I can tell that you care. I can tell that you're passionate about therapy, and I'm desperate. I will do whatever you tell me to do. If it means I'm gonna get out of this situation, if it means I can get my life back, I will do it. I had finally come to the end of me. I had done all I knew. So I started meeting with him 2 or 3 times a week. Depending on my condition, there wasn't any immediate signs of improvement or change or any of that kind of thing, but I just felt like I was in an environment now that was conducive for healing. I started doing this one thing that changed my life, and I started it out of desperation. But God used that desperation for the foundation. Every time I started feeling this fear and anxiety start to come on me, I'd walk out my front door and start walking around our block. We had a block that was about a mile long, and I would just take off and start walking. So angry, tears in my eyes, just yelling at God, why me? Don't you love me? Don't you hear my prayers? Can't you see I'm struggling? Why did this happen to me? Why did you let this happen to me? I would do these walks 4 or 5 times a day, in the morning, in the evening, at night, and late nights, out there screaming at God. All the neighbors thinking I done lost it, see me out there talking to myself. But brokenness is the womb that gives birth to miracles. The more we go through the fire, the more refined we become. And God shaped me and prepared me for the calling on those walks. In the midst of my trials and tribulation, God showed up and introduced himself. He took that desperation and turned it into a relationship. I didn't go out on that block to find him, but on that block he found me. He gave me revelation as to what fear was. Fear is faith in reverse. If fear can destroy one's life, then faith must be able to rebuild it. I had so much anger, so much guilt, so much frustration built up on the inside of me, but no way to channel it. My mother suggested that I go buy a punching bag and hang it up in the backyard and just let it all out. So I went to the sports store and bought me a brand new bag and went in the backyard and hung it up. I put on the gloves and I hit the bag like 2 times. Bam, bam. And I started having another panic attack. I started getting dizzy, short of breath. So I ran inside thinking I was having a heart attack. So I called my mother on the phone. I said, Mom, I was out punching the bag. I was doing what you told me to do, and I feel like I'm about to pass out. And she said, no more, son. You go back in that backyard and you hit that bag. And I said, Mama, I can't. I feel like I need to go to the hospital. And she said, no, son. You go back in the backyard. You put those gloves on and you hit that bag. If you need to stay on the phone with me to do it, you do it. But you go back in that backyard and you hit that bag right now. Everybody knows you can't tell Mama no. So I reluctantly walked back out there with her on the phone with me, and I put those gloves back on. And I said, Mom, I'm just gonna hit it one time and I'm going back inside. I can't take this now. And she said, you hit that bag. So I threw a left, I threw a jab, bah, I did it, Mama, that's enough. And she said, no, you hit that bag again. So I threw the right, boom. Threw the left, boom. Switching hands with the phone, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'll call you back, Mama. And I let all that frustration out in that bag, in that backyard that day. That was the first time that I was able to channel it and fight back in some kind of way. And I just kept hitting that bag. Bah, bah. I just kept imagining that ghost I'd been fighting. Now I had something to see, and I'm just punching it like I'm punching that ghost. Bah, bah. You're not gonna steal my life from me no more. All the years you done took from me, all the dreams you done stole from me, all the money, the happiness, the joy that you done robbed me of, I want it all back now. I hit that bag, I kicked that bag, and I screamed at that bag until my knuckles were bloody. That was the first time that I had really started fighting back. I drew a line in the sand and I said, no more. From a very young age, my mother and father raised me on positive thinking. So as I'm going through these panic attacks and this PTSD, I'm under the impression if I could just think positive long enough that I could bring my mind and body back into balance. But I just kept on having these attacks, day after day after day after day. My therapist knew the state I was in. So he set me up to come in 3 times a week and sit down an hour at a time with him. I'd pray before every session. I'd bring my Bible in with me and sit down on the couch, and we would start our sessions. First, he taught me about how the mind works and why I was having the panic attacks and the PTSD, what was going on scientifically inside my body. He taught me techniques that I could use in the moment where I could grab the steering wheel of my mind and gain back control of my thinking so that I could steer myself back to peace. God had placed an anointing on this man's life for treatment, and I was in good hands. Slowly but surely, I started to gain more and more of my day back, more and more of my week back, my month back, my life back. This didn't happen overnight. This battle went on for 7, almost 8 years. It was a roller coaster. I mean, I'd have 2 good weeks and I'd think, okay, I'm done with the panic attacks. I'm back to normal life. And the enemy would show up. I'd have a panic attack that was more severe than anyone that I'd had before. Back to the couch. My therapist wouldn't give up on me. He just kept on, and we just grinded it out in therapy. I remember telling my therapist, I said, Travis, if I ever get over this, I'm gonna find a way to help people. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. And it's funny though, because my therapist was actually the first one to call me a pastor. Up until this point, I had never even considered being a preacher or going to ministry school or any of that kind of stuff. I just started going to church. But every time he saw me when I came to therapy, I always had a Bible with me. I didn't have that Bible with me because I was going to be a preacher. I had that Bible with me because that's all I had. See, I knew if God did not fix me, my life was over. The hardest times for me was in between those sessions with Travis. I was good when I was there with him because I felt like I had help, you know, right there in the moment. I've got somebody that understands what I'm going through and he's helping me get through it. But as soon as that last minute of that hour session ended, the anticipation crept back in because now I knew I was back alone until the next session. When I'd get out, I'd look at my watch and I'd be like, 6 days and 23 hours and 59 minutes until I'm back in here. I got very creative at keeping my mind off of my mind. It's amazing when I look back at it. I didn't see it then, but God was moving in the situation. And As I mentioned before, when I started getting these panic attacks, I used to go for these walks around my block. And what I started doing was putting on my headphones as I left the house. I'd search YouTube for motivational videos and just pour this stuff in my mind. See, I had to bridge the gap. I had 6 more days before I saw Travis. And these motivational videos, man, they meant everything to me. I was fighting severe depression. I was emotionally wounded. I was shattered into a million pieces. I didn't even recognize myself. But I'm walking around this block with my headphones on, listening to the greatest speakers that ever lived. And they're telling me it's not over, that God had a plan for me. I understand now. For me to preach hope, I had to understand desperation first. And God was showing me that through this time. See, when I do this now, I don't take it lightly. This ain't a game to me, because I know who's on the other end of these speakers, these headphones, these videos, these computers that are watching and listening. I know you. I was you. I know what it feels like to be alone, to be on the edge, the verge of giving up. I've been there. I don't speak now or do these motivational videos for views and counts and YouTube ad revenue. I don't do it for that. I understand what's going on out there. Every week I go back to that block and I drive around it, so I make sure I never forget who I'm talking to. Every night I went out there and talked to God. I got my PhD in faith on that block. That's where it all came from. I speak boldly like this because of that block. That block made me this way. I started going to this Monday night men's group meeting at church. And I should have known something was up, because the first meeting I go to, you know, there's 25, 30 men in there. I don't know anybody. I'm going by myself. All different ages, from like 18 to 70. I'm still dealing with panic attacks. And I just knew a little bit about the Bible and the Word. Just a little bit. And the time that I'd spent out there on that block praying, that's all I knew. And at this first meeting, the group was having this open discussion. This guy started talking about the Word of God. And the way he was saying it was like the Word of God didn't have any power. I mean, he wasn't doing it intentionally. But the word he was preaching wasn't the word I was walking out on that block. See, I'm in the middle of a war. The word was telling me I was blessed and unstoppable. That was running contrary to what he was saying. See, I didn't understand at the time how important that was going to be in my life. See, but we got in this heated discussion, and this guy got so mad. He turned the table over, slammed his chair down, and left the meeting. Talk about feeling awkward. I don't know anybody in that group, and I just ran somebody else, been going to this group for like 5 years, and they all knew him, and they all looking at me like I'm the bad guy in the room. But all I'm saying is God still moves. He's gotta move. Because if he don't move, I'm not gonna make it. Looking back, I realized the enemy, the devil, was trying to run me away from there. Because my destiny was tied to that meeting that I went to that night. And even though everybody was looking at me like, who's this young guy in here talking the word like that? I'm desperate. I ain't got nothing to lose. I'm showing up the next week anyway. I don't care what these people think. It's me against the world, but I'm gonna get my healing. The next week I got a chance to tell the group what had been going on in my life and the struggles that I was going through with the panic attacks. And some of the older guys started to gather around me. They put their hands on me and started praying for me right there at the table. From that point on, my healing, my recovery started to accelerate. I started getting better and better. My therapy sessions were more and more productive. And I slowly, inch by inch, started to crawl out of that pit I'd been in for so long. I remember the promise I had made God one night, that if he healed me, I would tell the world who did it. A couple years later, a Christian university came to our church on Monday night and had an orientation about this college program they had for Bible theology and ministry. I didn't really have any desire to preach at that time or any of that kind of thing. I just thought, what better way to learn the word and learn about God than actually go to school for it? The one thing that was holding me up, the hesitation, was me and my wife were in the process of building a brand new house. I just put down a big down payment on that, and then I was going to have to take on this extra financial responsibility with going to school. So I remember sitting in that chair, and I asked asked God, I said, is this what you want me to do? And I never will forget, the Spirit spoke to me and it said, you ain't never been more right than you are right now. So I signed up. I couldn't go back to the men's group on Monday nights now because that's when my college classes were. One night during my second semester, I'm there sitting at my desk doing my work and I get a phone call. And since I'm in class, I send it to the voicemail. It's my wife's sister. She left a message. I knew something wasn't right, so I excused myself and went out into the hall and I called Kim back. And when she picked up, she said, Billy, I got some real bad news. Richard, which was my wife's brother, he hung himself. And Jen's home alone and we don't want to call her and tell her. So could you please go home and tell her the news? Now, I don't know how to do this. It's not something they teach you in school, how to tell somebody that their family member hung themselves. And on top of that, I'm still having panic attacks, so this sent me into a downward spiral right there. And I'm driving home and I'm saying, Lord, why did you give me this assignment? How am I supposed to do this? I can't even take care of myself right now. And you got me delivering this news. I don't know how to tell her this. Years later, I'd be preaching on Monday night. Instead of delivering the news of death, God gave me the message of hope and life. And He revealed to me one night, He said, in order for you to preach life, you needed to first understand death. And this is why you've been so close to it. But now I'm gonna give you a different assignment and you'll understand the importance of what I'm gonna give you. I finished my college curriculum, walked across the stage and got my degree. And I thought, boy, this is gonna look pretty on my wall. I had no intention of using the degree for ministry. I just loved God. But I couldn't see myself getting up there in front of all them people and preaching. Not from where I came from. I've been a rapper for years. All that junk I've been saying, now I'm gonna get up there and preach in front of all these people? No, not me. Besides, what am I gonna say to them? I was still making the transition from my old life to this newborn believer. I've been a street hustler, entrepreneur my whole life. And the only thing I knew business-wise was this old lifestyle, this rap music, the CDs, the clothing, all the stuff. That's what all my money and income was built around. I had stopped actually rapping myself, but I was still selling this junk. This is all I knew. So I started praying, Lord, show me a way out of this stuff, that I can have income that will pay all my bills and all the stuff that I got going on that's legitimate, that's something I can be proud of, something that matches this new me that you're turning me into. The funny thing about it was, the place I was at, I was connected to the streets. So I had a lot of dope boys and gangsters and stuff like that coming into my workplace there buying this kind of music. My name was good. They knew me as a hustler. I'd been doing this for years. So they respected me in the streets. God started using me to sow life into them, to minister to these guys that were coming in every day. First, I was real timid about it because I'm like, how am I gonna look? I'm telling these guys about God and they know me from hustling. They gonna look at me like I'm soft, like I done lost my mind or something. You know, so that pride got in the way a lot of times in the very beginning. I had to learn it the hard way. One day I'm sitting at a red light and I see one of the guys that comes into my store. He drives through the intersection on these brand new rims. And something came out of my mouth right there on the spot. I don't know where it came from, but I said, they're gonna get him. And I didn't understand the significance of what I had just said. But something in my spirit said, you need to tell him that they're gonna get him. I felt like this was a message from God that I had been given the assignment to deliver. I wasn't close with this guy, but I did like him. I knew he was a dope boy in the street life and ran with that whole scene. So when he came in my store the next week, I remember my assignment. But I was timid, I was scared. I'm like, what is it gonna look like if White Dog tell this guy to get out the game? What if I tell him that somebody's gonna get him? What is he gonna think about me? I tiptoed around it and told him everything but what I was supposed to tell him. And I let him walk right out my store. He came back the next week, and I did the same thing. I started talking myself out of it. Was that really from God, or was that just me thinking this way? And I let him walk right out the door again. Then the third week, he comes back. And by this time, I done convinced myself that it wasn't God talking to me. It was just me thinking that. I was like, if it's the third week and he hadn't been got, then nothing's gonna happen to him. It was just all in your head. God don't speak like that. It was just all in your head. You don't need to tell him that. And besides, if you tell him that, he's gonna think you done went soft, that you done fell off. And then they gonna stop coming in here and stop spending money with you. So I kept my name and my pride intact, and I let him walk right back out that door again. A few weeks later, this guy and his girlfriend comes in my store, and they're buying CDs, and we get to talking, and he said something to me. He's like, you know, I'm really having a hard time right now. And I said, oh, what's going on? You know, what's happening? He said, man, you know, ever since my brother was killed, I just ain't been the same. And I didn't put two and two together. I said, who's your brother? He's like, you know my brother. He used to come in here and buy CDs from you all the time. And I'm like, nah, who you talking about? And he looked over at his girlfriend. He said, run out in the car and grab one of the t-shirts that's got my brother's picture on it, the one we wore at the funeral. So she runs out to the car and comes back with the t-shirt. And it's him. It's the one I didn't tell. And I asked him, I said, what happened? What happened to him? He said, well, he was pumping gas at a gas station when these two guys ran up on him. We don't know who it was. All we know is they said, we got you, and shot him. Right before my sophomore year, my mother got a promotion. So my family, we moved from Dallas, Texas to beautiful South Florida. It was around this time that I really got into rap music. I mean, I'd always had this desire on the inside to express myself. I mean, I can remember back when I was around 8 years old in church, I used to sit there with the little tithing envelopes and write little jingles and little songs like I'd see in the hymn books. I was just a little kid, but I had this voice, this craving to express myself. Destiny conspired to put me in position to give me a platform to express what was inside of me, to move me toward my calling that I'm in today. My rap career started in my sophomore year. I was on the baseball team, and we had this 4-hour break from when school got out and when our game started that evening. So to kill time, me and some buddies went over to a friend's house. He was a DJ. He had 2 Technique 1200s, a Newmark mixer, a crate of records, a couple cassette decks, and a microphone. I felt like I was in heaven. I was in awe. I'd never seen no equipment like this. Johnny, the guy's house we at, he was known for making mixtapes locally there at the school. So he put a cassette tape in, hit record, put the needle on the record, and started mixing. They knew that I rapped around school. So Johnny handed me the mic and said, you rap, I'll mix, let's get it. I mean, he was spinning all the classics. Instrumental to Planet Rock, Play at Your Own Risk, Set It Off, Drummers Beat, all the funky grooves, just mixing instrumentals back to back. And I'd be busting these little 8-bar raps, freestyle off the top of my head. We weren't any good, but we didn't know it. We just went all in with what we did have because we was passionate about music. Something about that microphone being in my hand felt right. It was like love at first sight. And when we got done, I took that cassette tape that we had made, I took it home with me. I thought after that first mix, I was one of the best rappers in the world, somewhere between KRS-One and Too Short. You couldn't tell me nothing. Looking back, what was crazy about it was I had 2 big revelations back to back. The first revelation was the microphone felt good in my hands, like it belonged there. That was my first self-discovery. The second was I got a taste of what it was like to be an entrepreneur. You see that tape we had made? I took it home and I made 5 copies of it. And the next day I went to school with those 5 copies, and before lunch, I had sold all 5 at $5 a piece. That means I had $25. Now that don't seem like a lot today, but back then I was getting $10 a week allowance, and I had to do a whole lot of chores to get that $10. So to make $25 before lunch, I was like, hold on, something's here. I gotta explore this. So when school got out, I went to the local drugstore and I bought a 10-pack of blank tapes. They cost me $10. So I had $15 left and I had 10 more tapes. So I went home, dubbed those 10 tapes up, came back the next day and sold all of them. By the end of the week, I had over $100-something. Third revelation, I realized I was a salesman, that I had some hustle in me, some grind in me, and I could use that grind and use that hustle, that sales talent that I had, and I could get whatever I wanted. I studied the game. I realized when I did a mixtape, if I shouted out some of the popular kids' names in school, and I put their name on the tape, that I usually sold 3 or 4 times as many of that tape as the other ones. People love to hear their name. That's that Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. See, I was learning it in real time. I didn't have nobody teaching me this. No mentors, no coaches, nothing like that. I was just studying the game. A couple months went by, and I took that money that I was making and reinvested it back into myself. I bought my own equipment. I kind of got forced into that because the guys that I was making the mixtapes with, it was on their equipment. And they started catching beef with me, seeing me making money and seeing my name get big around school. These guys were closet DJs and bedroom rappers. And what I mean by that is they had the big dreams of being a star in the rap game, but they never left the bedroom. They never left the closet with their music. They wouldn't put in the sweat and the grind, too scared of rejection to go out on the street and make that dream a reality. I was never a great rapper. I was just above average, but my grind and my hustle was great. See, when I hit the block, it was 120 beast mode. I wasn't scared of hearing no. I wasn't gonna let somebody's no stop me from doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't good enough to have somebody put me on. But see, that molded and shaped me. It prepared me for what I'm doing now. Cause see, I had to work for everything I got. It wasn't long before I was #1 in school. Then I became #1 in that whole area. #1 in that whole city. Everybody knew my name. I grew up listening to Jam Pony Express. Now, these guys were legends in the DJ game in the state of Florida. And all I dreamed about was being good enough to be asked into that group, to be with that clique. They were legends in Florida. I mean, they were like DJ Red Alert, DJ Kid Capri, DJ Clue, the DJ Screw of Florida. Now, the headquarters of the rap game in South Florida at this time was a place called Cotam Stereo, located inside the Oakland Park Flea Market. This was the hub of all the mixtape game. People would come from all over the world to get the mixtapes there and take them back to their towns and dub them and sell them across the country. When you go into Cotam, they had this notebook sitting on the counter. Inside that notebook, it had a list of all the cassette tapes that they had for sale. And they was all by number. Like you'd have 801, 802, 803. And each number would have the song list of what was on that cassette. And the DJ's name. Like DJ Slick Vic, Big Ace, Cool to See, J-Dog, Bass Style Express, DJ Uncle Al, Power Funk DJs. These guys were street legends. And the way it worked back in the day was, if you wanted to be put on in the rap game, if you wanted to be famous, you had to have your music, your tapes, in Cotam's book. If you weren't in that book, you were just a wannabe. You had to be somebody or do something big to get in that book, because they only had like 7, 8 names in it, that's it. It wasn't about money, because Cotam only paid $10 a master tape. So what you would do is you bring your tape in there, they give you $10 for it if they accepted it, and then they would make massive copies of it and sell it all over and make all the money. But as a DJ or as a rapper, that gave you instant street cred, and you could get booked all over Florida rapping or DJing in whatever club you wanted to. So I set my eyes on the prize. I dream big. I'm gonna get my tapes in that book. The world is gonna know who Billy is. Every weekend, I took a new tape down there and brought it to them, hoping to get into that book. They weren't even giving my music an honest listen. They just looked at me and saw me being young, and they put the tape in for like 5-10 seconds and then hit stop and say no. And they did this week after week after week after week. I must have went in that thing 15, 20 weeks in a row and got a no. But it didn't deter me, because I said, you know what? I'm going to get in that book. I don't care how many times they tell me no. They going to take my music. Finally, I started building rapport with the guy that would listen to the music. He said, you come in here every single week and get a no from us, but you keep coming back. He said, most people come in here and get a no one time and we never see them again. But you keep coming back every single week. So he said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this tape from you this week and give it a try. We're not going to pay you for it, but we're going to put you in the book. And we're going to see how you do. And if it does all right, you come back next week and we'll buy one from you. From that day forward, it was on. Every week, they were taking my music. And before long, 1/3 of that book was me. And all the guys that I looked up to for so long, all of them was doing collabos with me. I ended up in that group Jam Punk. The world famous Big Ace took me under his wing and trained me in the game. Rest in peace, bruh. I actually later on got hired to work at Cotown. I had built a relationship up with the owners, and they needed somebody that knew the music and had street cred to purchase the music from these DJs every week, because they didn't really know and understand rap music. And I was in position now to meet everybody in the rap game, and they all had to come see me. So this was an awesome opportunity for me to plant myself in the industry and learn it from the inside out. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me was Cotam was making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year off of our mixtapes that they were only paying us $10 for. So I stepped to them one day, the owners, and I said, hey, can we work out some kind of deal, you know, where we as DJs get more money off the cassette, you know, like $1 a tape or something like that, or 50 cents a tape or whatever. You selling it for $10. If we could get like $1 off that thing, and you selling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, we could get a couple $100 for our work. Most of the other DJs stayed high all the time, so they didn't really see what was going on. But me being on the inside of it and seeing the money that was being made, I didn't think it was an unreasonable request, because there was plenty of money to go around, but these guys just wasn't giving it out. So when I presented this offer, it really offended the owners there at Cotam. So we got into a big argument over the money, and basically they were like, you need us, we don't need you, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't that same little kid that was coming up in there with a cassette begging to get on anymore. I was on now. Everybody knew me now. Everybody came up into that store and respected me and came for me for the music. So basically, that was my last day working there. I went and bought 100 blank tapes, went home, dubbed them up, and the next weekend, I'm out in that parking lot in front of Cotam, short-stopping everybody that used to buy tapes from them. I'm getting them on the outside. I'm giving them a deal, 2 for $15. And man, I'd be out there 2 hours and have $500-$600 every Saturday, every Sunday, like clockwork. It wasn't long before the owners of Cotam found out that I was out in the parking lot. So they called the owner of the flea market, and the owner sent the police over there to put a trespass warrant out on me so that I couldn't come back on the property anymore. But the thing was, I was making too much money to stop. So I let a couple weeks go by to lay low for a little bit, and about a month later, I'm back on the block again, $400, $500, $600 every Saturday, every Sunday. 6 weeks later, I get arrested for trespassing out there for selling my tapes. They succeeded in taking my spot away from me, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So my mind started turning what to do next. It wasn't that location that made me, I made that location. All I needed was another spot to set up. I ended up down the street at the Shell gas station. Now this spot was hot, and what I mean by that was this is where the dope boys served drugs at. If you wanted a cop, you went to the Shell gas station. All the dope boys would line up by the payphones, right? And people would pull up to get gas. The dope boys would jump out, serve them, and then go back by the phones. Now, at this point, I had street cred. Everybody knew my name in the street around there. They knew I did music. They didn't see me as a threat because I didn't smoke and I didn't serve drugs. I just did music. So they didn't mind me hanging around there. So we had this little system set up. When a car would pull up, the dope boys would jump out, do their thing, and when they got done, I would walk over there with my bag of tapes. I'd be like, hey, I got that music. They'd put my cassette tape in, play it, and usually about 9 out of 10 times they buying something from me. Back when I was working at the flea market, I had met this guy, Jack, who had a full recording studio in his house. But he didn't know anything about the equipment. He wasn't a sound engineer, didn't know how to produce beats, didn't want to. All he wanted to do was rap. Now he had approached me saying, hey, if you come over here and make beats for me at the crib or whatever, I'll give you free studio time whenever you want it. You can just come in here whenever you want to record. You can do what you want to do free. Just when I want to beat or whatever, when I want to rap, you come in here and record me. Up until this time, I'd always been rapping over other people's beats on these mixtapes that I was doing. They're instrumentals. It wasn't my own music. It was my lyrics, but somebody else's music. So this offer from Jack was perfect for me because I wanted to get into doing my own stuff. And this gave me the opportunity to learn and to progress in my career. Now, he had all this top-notch equipment in there, but no manuals, and there was no one else to show me how to run this stuff. I just had to figure it out the hard way. I'd go over to his house every single night, 8 to 10 hours, and just grind in the studio cutting music. I ended up doing my first album there. Did the whole thing myself, produced it, wrote it, mixed it, engineered it, performed it, all of it. What I didn't have, my grind overcame. I ended up getting to intern at the biggest radio station in Miami at the time, which was Power 96. That was such an honor to me, because see, I had street cred, but now the next move was getting on the radio. And I was looking up and idolizing DJ Laz, who was king of Miami at the time. I ended up getting introduced to him and actually got to open up for him on a couple of the shows that he did. He'd call me up on stage right in the middle of his performance and let me do my thing right in the middle of the show. And we would rock the house. So when my first record came out that I had made myself, my own music, he was the first person that I brought it to. Because I was like, oh, if this guy plays my record, it would mean so much. This is the guy I look up to. And he ran Miami. If he played the record, you were pretty much on. That's it. You know, every other station in Florida was gonna jump on it. He had connects in Texas and Cali. So I knew if I could get him to play it, my career was about to take off. I knew I had a hit record and the music was good because I was testing it out on the streets on my mixtapes before I ever brought it over there. And the response I got on the streets was crazy. They were buying it like crazy. So I knew, okay, I got a hit record here. Now all I gotta do is get this guy to play it. And I'm on. He used to DJ at this teen club on Friday night, and it was wall to wall in there. 1,500 kids, standing room only at this place. It was the hottest club in Fort Lauderdale. So I brought the vinyl over there to the club, went up in the DJ booth and gave it to him. Said, hey, this is my new record, man. You know, I've been looking up to you for years, man. If you could play it, it'd mean a whole lot to me. See, at this time, all I had was music. It meant everything to me. I had a dream, my grind, and this music, and that's it. That's all I had to offer to the world at that time. Me and my girlfriend went out there every Friday from the moment that club opened up to the moment it closed, till the last record was played. We stayed there because I didn't want to miss it. If he played my record, I wanted to be there when it happened. I went out there 3 months straight and he never played it. I remember the last time that I was in there in that club, I remember walking out the club with tears in my eyes. Because see, I knew I had a good record. Because when I'd go outside the club, people were driving off, playing my mixtapes, playing the song that I'm trying to get him to play. And it's everywhere. Every single car's leaving the club playing my stuff. So I knew it wasn't my music. So I'm like, what's the deal here? He's rejecting me. The guy that I idolize is rejecting me. And see, I'm young and dumb and I don't understand how the music business operates. I don't understand that there's a protocol to that. All I can understand is he's not playing my record and it's hurting me on the inside. I got this dream and this guy's holding it up. At the time, my mind state was this. You could just about do anything you wanted to me in any kind of way and I'd forgive you for it. But the one thing I wouldn't forgive you for is not believing in me and my dream. It crushed me emotionally. See, all that love and admiration I had for him turned to hate. Breathe, well, live, blessed and unstoppable. Join the movement. Get your books and t-shirts now. Blessed and unstoppable. Success starts with putting the right things into your mind. And my new book, Blessed and Unstoppable, was strategically designed to align your mind with the laws of success. This curriculum will teach you the inner mechanics required to go from average to phenomenal, from living a life with limits to being blessed and unstoppable. As you follow this guide step by step, amazing breakthroughs will happen. New doors of opportunity will open,
and favor will begin to chase you down. Blessed and Unstoppable is a 31-day devotional on the laws of success. This book will instigate the thought process and actions required to transform your life. Each day has a Bible verse, a teaching on that day's principle, a positive affirmation, a prayer for the day, self-assessment questions, success quotes, action steps, and a powerful inspirational message. Regardless of what field you're in, Blessed and Unstoppable is your blueprint for success. Get your copy at blessedandunstoppable.com. Also available on Amazon.